Now this is a bigger crock pot. Whoops, I got the cord here. There we go.
Yes, and now you can do all kinds of squash.
Uh-huh.
And so this is a spaghetti squash.
Okay.
And they're just turn here, that the spaghetti squash, or any of your squashes, you just wash them and put them in here and no water. Because squash has more water to it, and so it'll actually have juice in there by the time it's done cooking.
Right.
And with a spaghetti squash, I like to just wash it off and put it in whole, and put the lid on and bake it. And it takes maybe 3 hours, just depending. You can do it on high or on low, so it would take longer if you did it on low.
So it's not as important to say the sweet potatoes or the
the color stays fine either
potato.
way.
Okay.
Yep. And if you have, let's say, butternut squash or acorn squash,
butternut's my favorite.
You can either do them whole, and again, like with butternut, a lot of times the lid won't fit on there, so you put the foil on. But if you don't want to do them whole and you want to cut them up, you put them in cut and take the seeds out, and then again, don't add any water
because it has the water.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
That
in
is
fact,
neat.
Let's see, with a spaghetti squash, if you cook that, let's say if I'm using an average cooker, on low, it's going to take about 7 to 8 hours, 7 or 7.5 hours.
So
or
that's
if you
quite a while.
cook it on high, it's more like about 3.5 hours. But even this time of year, like if it's later in the season, or let's say a few months later, you know how squash, they get harder?
Oh, yeah.
And so it might take longer for this to get soft. So
wow. There's a lot of variables.
There
then.
are.
Yeah, you can't just say cut and dry, this is the way it is. And
Right.
Wow, okay. What other kind of stuff can you bake in here?
Well, there's a lot of different vegetables that you can do. I have a recipe for an eggplant, garlic eggplant dish, and it is very good. Or one of my favorites is baked garlic. Oh, garlic is so good baked in the crock pot. It makes the house really smell good.
Yes.
Really?
I think so. I think if you're cooking onions or garlic, it makes the house smell good, and people come home and say, "Ooh, it smells like you're cooking," but maybe you're not doing anything. But the onion and garlic makes the smell, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you can do, I prefer to go with root vegetables if I'm going to add vegetables to like a soup or a stew. The more watery type things like green beans or peppers, they don't do as well for long cooking. But your carrots and your potatoes and your sweet potatoes, the more dense things work really well.
Work better. Now, when you say they don't do as well for long cooking, does that mean they turn to mush?
They lose their color, and sometimes the flavor becomes bitter. Like summer squash, I don't really care for that in the crock pot.
Yeah.
So there, you can do, of course, soups are really common. Beans and soups,
oh, yeah.
We all know about that.
Yeah, beans is what I do in the crock pot, so that's neat to learn.
But
other things.
I like to do like desserts like brownies or a date nut bar.
Now you're talking.
You can even do ice cream
in the crock pot. Ice cream in the crock pot?
Yeah.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah.
And that's in your cookbook?
Yes.
I got to get your cookbook. Yeah, that's wonderful. In the crock pot. I can't believe that.
You know, and I could leave that as a teaser. I could be a little more, honest about this. But
well, maybe you could be a little more honest. I'm waiting for that.
I make the sauce. I make the sauce in the crock pot. I cook. It's something that I cook.
Okay.
And then I put it like in an ice cream freezer.
Okay, because I'm thinking, I mean, the crock pot heats things up, and you'd have really runny ice cream or something. So.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, and you can make loaves like an oat loaf, tofu loaf. There's just endless. You can take your favorite recipes, and you can adapt most any of your favorite recipes. Just cut down on the liquid is a major thing. Cut down on the liquid part, and you can even put an insert in here. Let's say you take a cake pan, an 8-inch round cake pan, and that'll fit in your bigger pots, and you can bake in that.
Good. Well, that's exciting. I've learned a lot of stuff.
And the spaghetti squash with this tofu sour cream and the sesame seed topping.